Hello everybody. Now if you're watching this on TikTok, this video is going to be in two halves. Now what's happening, I'm in direct contact with a modern Egyptian. I'm in a debate with him and I promised him that I'm going to upload a video in response to his comments plural. I'm not going to say his full username, I'm just going to call him Mr. Ali for now. I'm going to post this on YouTube, so YouTube you're going to get this in one hit, but TikTok users, this will come in two halves. Now, even though I'm addressing him direct, you the viewer, you will be like the jury, because as I said to Mr. Ali, I'm going to present this as though I'm in a court case and I'm going to present the evidence. So you're probably, what the hell are we talking about? We're talking about ancient Egypt and the ethnicity or the race of the ancient Egyptians, and that is what we're having a back and forth about. This comes on the back of the documentary on Netflix, Cleopatra, but I wasn't talking about Cleopatra. That led on to another subject, what me and Mr. Ali in the middle of right now. So Mr. Ali, with no further ado, as I said in my comments, I'm going to make two disclaimers for the record so everyone can see this. Disclaimer number one, I'm not making no claims to no culture, because as far as I'm aware, I have no links with the Asian Africans on that side of Africa. I am not a Kushite, I am not a Nubian, and yeah, so even though I was born here in the UK of Afro-Caribbean origin, but the African stock I belong to would be a West African. So as far as I'm aware, I reserve the right to be proven wrong, but as far as I'm aware, I have no links to that side of the world, so I'm making no claims. So that's disclaimer number one. Disclaimer number two, when it comes to this particular subject, I refrain from using the word black unless I'm making a direct quote, because when you say black, to most people, they think of one African type, as I said previously, which they think of is in West Africa. This is due to the media, i.e. Hollywood, politicians, sports stars, and pop stars, music stars. And so most people think of West Africans. Whereas, as you know, you living on the continent of Africa, there's a diversity of African types. In the same way, there's a variation of types in each continent, i.e. take a Greek compared to Scandinavian. If we go to Asia, we take an Indian compared to a Chinese. In most cases, they look different to each other. So Africa is exactly the same. So East African looks different to a West African, yada yada. You get the picture. So hence why I prefer to use the word African, and I get specific by naming which part of Africa I am talking about. So on this subject, we're not talking about West Africans. We're talking about the Asian Africans that lived in that part of the world, East Africa, Northeast Africa. So that's disclaimer number two. As I said previously, this is going to be laid out like a court case, and I'm just presenting the evidence, and the jury, the viewers, could deliberate amongst themselves. I will have some questions for you at the end. Thank you very much, and with no further ado, let's get on with it. According to the texts of Herodotus and Aristotle, they describe the ancient Egyptians, or ancient Kemet, as dark-skinned with woolly or coiled hair, and in some cases, straight hair. But nevertheless, they describe them as dark-skinned. Members of the jury, had you been a police officer and you turned up to the scene of a crime, like a bank robbery, and the assailant was described as having dark-skinned with curly or coiled hair, and the other bank robbers were described as having dark skin with straight hair, who would you be looking for? Would you be looking for someone who looks like this? Or would you be looking for someone who looks more like this guy? Okay, the next witness we call to the stand is ancient Greek artwork. Now, there is a YouTuber by the name of Mr. Inhotep. I may pronounce the name wrong. I shall leave the link of his video in the description box. Now, he's put an appeal out because the only depictions of ancient Egyptians that you can see in Greek artwork are black Africans. I did say I shall refrain from using the word black, but I'm only quoting his words. Okay, so he's looking for the modern Egyptian type featured in ancient Greek artwork, and he can't find any. This is what he stated in his video, and he showed pictures of black Africans that the ancient Greeks depicted as Egyptians or Kemites. So he's put an appeal out. If anyone knows of any artwork that depicts the modern Egyptian type that we see today in ancient Greek artwork, please let him know. Don't shoot the messenger. Now we call the next witness to the stand. Facial features. Now, this is an argument that a lot of modern Egyptians make, that there were no dynasties, no African dynasties pre-25th dynasty. However, the explanation needs to be had. Why is there a difference between the facial features of the first pharaoh Nama in comparison to the modern day Egyptian phenotype? Now, and observations I have made, whenever a modern Egyptian is uploading a video in regards to comparing facial features of the modern Egyptian to ancient Egyptians, I notice every single time without fail, they cherry pick. They cherry pick the statues and the bust. And they only select the bust or the statues that's close or the same as the modern Egyptian phenotype. They never, ever, ever feature features that are African looking or of the African phenotype. Now, this is very underhanded and very dishonest, I think, because if you're going to tell a story, don't tell a story in part and present it as the full story. You need to tell the full story and show every aspect of that story. So let's compare the facial features of the modern Egyptian and the modern Egyptian pharaoh busts or type compared to the African features of the statues and other busts. Now, I'd like you to take note of this next picture or illustrations to come. It's a battle scene. Now, according to the modern Egyptians, they claim that the modern Egyptians now are the same as the ancient Egyptians were back then, is what they claim. However, what you will see in the picture to follow is the ancient Egyptians in a battle with the Assyrians, and you could see the skin tone and the phenotype is different to the ancient Egyptians. And here lies the problem. The modern Egyptians today look exactly the same in the light skin ones, that is. I'm not talking about the dark skin modern Egyptian. I'm talking about the Levantine type, the light skinned ones who you typically see as the modern Egyptians. They look exactly the same as the Assyrians. So if they look exactly the same as an Assyrian, if you put an Assyrian in front of me and you put a modern Egyptian in front of me, both of light skin, I wouldn't be able to tell you the difference between who's an Egyptian, who's an Assyrian. But they look different to the ancient Egyptian in the battle. In contrast, the battle scene with the ancient Egyptian against the Nubians, you would notice that amongst some of the Nubians who they're fighting against have the same skin tone and phenotype as the ancient Egyptians. This needs explaining. This needs an explanation, because again, all the evidence has to fit together. So if the modern Egyptians are claiming to be the same as the ancient Egyptians were and how they are now, then we have a problem with, because the evidence doesn't fit, and the explanation will be needed for that. Okay, everybody, we come to the final witness that we're going to call to the stand. DNA findings. This is probably the most interesting part of the court case, because many people only know of one DNA findings, which we'll come to shortly. Okay, so the first one that comes to mind, you can Google this. This is readily available on the internet. Mr. Imhotep, on his channel, he speaks about this in great depth. Ramesses III, his DNA was conducted in 2012. They found that he had the same DNA as the sub-Saharan Africans in Central Africa. So that's not only that, but there's an African American by the name of Dexter who lives in the city of Atlanta, Georgia, and he's found that he's a direct descendant of Ramesses III. Not only that, but he actually resembles the statues. You could see this on one of the channels, which I will include in the clip. Either if I don't do the link in the description box, I'll feature it in the next clip to come. On the African diaspora, there's a news report, and he was being interviewed, and you could see the actual resemblance in him and Ramesses III. So that's that. Second one I could think of, the DNA findings of Adama, spelled A-D-A-I-M-A. I may have spelt it wrong. In 2010, they done a study on 1,000 mummies, and they found they had DNA, same DNA as sub-Saharan Africans also. This is also, you could also Google this, and this also features on Mr. Imhotep's channel. I will leave the link in the description as well for that. And now lastly, but not least, the famous DNA findings of 2017 that most people quote. Now, since then, if you don't know, that finding has been debunked on a number of channels. I'll sure leave the link of the videos, because they could explain it better than me. But the problem with that, it was conducted in a place that was known for having a high degree of foreign influx, and they concluded that the ancient Egyptians had more of a link with the Near East. But as I said, that's been debunked since, and plus the the findings didn't actually say what a lot of people thinks it said. If they read the small print, it says it didn't cover the whole empire, because it was talking about, it did say that it only went back to 1300 years, I believe, out of 3,000-year empire. So, but like I said, the other videos break it down better than what I'm breaking it down right now in front of you now. So I would encourage you to watch the videos in the links, or the videos that comes on the actual photo clips. So now, in closing, I come to you, Mr. Ali. So now it's your move. Now, I say to you, Mr. Ali, it's no good that you just say, oh, well, this information is false, or it's fake, or you have to present the evidence. You have to present evidence why it's incorrect, why it's fake. You got to cite your sources. You got to provide artifacts. You can't just say something is wrong without providing the evidence, because anyone could say, oh, well, that's wrong, without providing any sort of evidence. So you got to cite your sources and bring forth some artifacts. And if you're only sticking to the 2017 DNA findings, then you have to explain why are you throwing out all the other evidence, like the Greek text and the Greek artwork, the facial features, and all that sort of thing. You got to explain why all that is invalid, but one study is valid. You have to explain all of that and make it make sense. So I bid you goodbye, Mr. Ali, and I look forward to hearing from you. And there we go. Thank you very much for taking part in our back and forth.